Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Deccan Herald Newsroom. It has been a pretty hectic week as far as the legislative business of Parliament is concerned. The government has taken up another key bill this week. This bill seeks to amend the various two key legislations or laws in the country and open up the power sector, nuclear power sector, or nuclear energy sector in the country, which is for the last 75-80 years since the independence has been closely guarded or monitored by the government. To discuss the new bill, we have with us two of our correspondents who cover Parliament, Kalyan Ray, who covers the science and technology also, and Shamin Joy, who covers Lok Sabha, where the bill was introduced. But before going into the details of the bill, it has been a little contentious bill, considering that the opposition opposed the introduction of the bill when it was taken up in the lower house of the Lok Sabha. Manish Tiwari of the Congress party stood up. The key point of contention that he raised was the sort of consensus that emerged in 2010 regarding what sort of liability should be built inside the India's legal framework for any foreign players who are coming in to participate in this particular sector. So before going into the details of the bill, let us listen into what Manish Tiwari had to say.
The Department of Atomic Energy, which leads India's nuclear program, felt that if we are going to be going into a collaboration where foreign suppliers are going to come in, there needs to be a clause in the bills or a section in the Act whereby if there is a nuclear incident because of the design in the product which has been supplied, that nuclear supplier should be made liable. What I find is that when you read clause 11 of the present bill, and the minister is here, if I'm making a mistake, I'm open to be corrected, but I did not find a single clause or a single word which says anything about supplier liability. The supplier liability has been completely removed. Now, God forbid, if a nuclear accident or a nuclear incident was to take place, then under those circumstances, shouldn't the supplier be liable? It is important to understand, and the minister must explain, how removing the supplier liability clause is actually going to help. In my humble estimation, it is going to harm India. Next, I come to clause 30, the liability clause. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, there have been a couple of big nuclear accidents. Now, clause 13 limits the liability to 300 million SDR, special drawing rights, which is approximately about 410 million US dollars. Even in the case of the Bhopal gas tragedy, the compensation awarded was $470 million. And this I'm talking about 15 years back. Why is the government imposing these liability caps?
That was Manish Tiwari raising his point in the Lok Sabha yesterday. But Jitendra Singh, the minister who is in charge of this ministry, at the end of the discussion, he stood up to respond to the various questions and queries by the members of Parliament. This is what he had to say.
The decision was taken with the intention that we improve our installed capacity. We have more resources. Our gestation period reduces. Some of the avoidable embargoes are also done away with. And in the process, to accommodate the private players. Now, for that, obviously, some of the adjustments, modifications needed to be made in the existing position of law. There were apprehensions in the CLND that the supplier was made party to the liability, which had caused some amount of reservation on the part of the investors. So that part of CLND is also being accordingly handled with and modified. It has 3 sections, A, B, C. The other 2 are being retained. B is being slightly modified in order to get over that inhibition that is faced by several potential investors.
Kalyan, this particular bill, one of the main issues is being raised that the liability aspect has been watered down. Now, before we get into this, what is the larger aim of the bill? Are we looking at, a situation 20, 30 years from now where India's energy requirements would be much more than what it is now, and government is trying to factor in that aspect in bringing this bill to open up the sector so that there is more participation, there is more inflow of capital in this particular sector?
So government has set a target of getting 100 gigawatt of nuclear energy by 2047, when we will complete 100 years of our independence. Now, as we going forward, increasingly we will see less and less use of coal because of climate change concerns. But for our energy need, so we will depend more on renewable hydro, and then government is also factoring in the nuclear power, because nuclear is a sector which is clean and it gives 24/7 power, which is not possible with the renewable. And also, nuclear technology has improved a lot in the last let's say 15-20 years. So there are much more safety features are in place. Also, the generation of power is needed much more because of this growth in the artificial intelligence and the data center, all of which are kind of power guzzlers. So worldwide, many companies, including kind of bigs like Google or Amazon, they all are exploring the captive nuclear power plant to run their operations. So everywhere in the world we are developing what we call the small modular reactor or SMR technologies. So in India we are also started researching on the SMRs. We hope to get the first few SMRs already by 2033. But if you look at our overall energy needs, the nuclear power corporation, which is currently the only person, the government-owned company that generate nuclear power. So they aim to supply around 50% of this target of 100 gigawatt. So for the remaining 50%, government now looks at the private sector who can come out with the PHWR or any other technology, and also the small captive reactors that can be needed in the industry, IT industry, competition, AI, and also those coal-fired plants that are getting retired. So since we are not replacing with more coal, so they are looking at those plants also as this SMR can also be installed in those plants, because we already have a power plant there. We have to just remove the source of energy from coal to nuclear. So these are the two reasons for which SMR is being developed all over the world. Private sector is largely involved. So government is also opening up to private sector to harness more energy from nuclear power.
But politically, if you look at it, I mean, one of the points which he raised, Manish Tiwari, yesterday was that since 1948, at various junctions, there seems to be some sort of consensus, political consensus on this issue. He mentioned the Jaswant Singh Talbot interactions post the Vajpayee government's Pokhran test, and then Manmohan Singh taking it forward till 2010, although they had to face a no confidence motion on the follow. The rhetorics apart. But one point that he raised about that liability, who should be held liable, how much, to what extent. The government has tried to explain that by saying the security measures have been changed. I mean, they are much better now. But then in the past, we have seen, despite all that, we have had incidents in Japan, we have had incidents in Russia. Politically, do you think that, was the Congress making a political point out of it yesterday, or there is essentially no consensus now on this issue?
See, in 2010, when this consensus, the so-called consensus on civil nuclear liability came, before that Congress also, the then Congress government, Kalyan would be able to explain it better, had almost similar, if not the same, if not some similar. So there was a lot of pressure on the government to bring in this liability clause on the supplier, especially on the supplier's part. So yesterday's bill, this SHANTI bill, what is happening is that the government is removing the liability of the supplier. it is shifting suppliers' liability to operators.
Operators.
So what yesterday this became a big contention, I mean, because almost all opposition MPs raised this issue, starting from Manish Tiwari, then Arun Nehru of DMK, Shashi Tharoor again, and other MPs raised this issue. While Jitendra Singh was responding to this particular issue, he said, see, in this bill we are restricting the liability to the operators. He is saying that we are taking suppliers out of this particular aspect. If there is something, let operator have a agreement.
But then that is left between the supplier and the operator.
Yes. So government says that we are not going to make the supplier responsible.
But there is also, he also raised the quantum of liability.
The quantum
and he made a comparison with the Gopal tragedy, where he said that the quantum is, if you compare it to that, the award by the Supreme Court is comparatively minuscule.
Yeah, that was what Manish Tiwari said. But the government's argument is that there is a cap for the operator. We cannot make them do anything more than that. But government will take care of if say 3,000 crore is the cap for the highest nuclear site, if an incident happens. He says that if it is beyond 3,000 crore, government will intervene, will come into play, government will pay the See, this issue is that politics apart, there was no pre-legislative consultation in this thing. So the last time also when this civil 2010 law on the nuclear liability came, there was a lot of consultation. I mean, left parties, BJP. I mean, one could criticize Manmohan Singh's draft legislation before it was passed. There might have some flaws or whatever. But there was a lot of consultation. There was pressure groups. Left many Congress's life horrible during that period. The left UPA coordination committees and all other things. Before that was before 2008. But after 2008, there was a lot of pressure. That kind of a thing didn't happen. This bill came on Monday, if I'm right. People started reading, the MPs and other stakeholders started to get to know what is the contours of this thing. And in a day or two, they have to come to Parliament, start discussing it. So you think that the stakeholders should have been consulted more? It should have been consulted. There should have been more debates. People may say that common person won't understand the nuclear science or plutonium, thorium and all, but that is not the case. We have to take the issue to the people, tell them these are the issues. So we have a lot of nuclear, if not lot, substantial amount of disasters happening, nuclear disasters happened in the past. So people should be made aware of this, and there will be concern. That concerns were not addressed.
Okay, so that was one demand, that send the bill to the standing committee or a joint committee of Parliament. But Kalyan, Minister responded to this particular aspect. If we were to look at worldwide, the sort of security measures that have evolved over the period in time, since say Chernobyl, or in Japan, what happened almost 15 years back. So have we reached a stage in terms of advancement of the science, the nuclear science, that India as a country and world as a whole is prepared for this sort of these small mini nuclear power plants that can feed into, say, you have industrial towns, or you have industries which are energy guzzlers. Irrespective of what the government says or the opposition says, what is the position currently worldwide? What is the situation in, say, other countries where these sort of experiments probably, or these sort of installations are already in place, and how are they working?
SMR is actually an emerging technology. Worldwide, there are only two operational SMRs. One is in China and one is in Russia. The rest of the SMR are still operational technologies. They are still emerging technologies. So people are researching on it. We should also join the research and try out these new technologies. It is too early to say what kind of form it will be developed. But there is a lot of private sector involvement in developing this technology because of the development in the parallel sectors, and like in AI, like in data processing, like in metallurgy. So you cannot just leave out private sector out of nuclear now. The problem with the liability is that in any nuclear plant, there are two entities. One is an operator and one is a supplier. the liability is fixed on the operator in this bill and not in the supplier. In the 2010 law, okay, there was a supplier liability, and that was put in place because of this pressure given by various political parties and other groups. Okay, so what happened in that after the law came into being, in the last 15 years, nobody came forward with the investment. And if you remember that in 2010 when this bill was passed, or when in 2008 the 123 agreement was signed with the USA. So there are talks about large multinational companies like GE, Westinghouse, French companies to coming out India to set up their big nuclear power plants. The sites were prepared, sites were acquired, prepared. Nobody came forward because of this supply liability clause. So the government of India tried to convince people that they will be kind of shielded, but these people did not flinch. One. Second, there is also a problem in the old law that you do not define who is the supplier. So a big company like GE or Westinghouse is also a supplier. A small Indian company who is supplying, let's say, nut bolt or pipes or valves, they are also supplier. Okay, so who will be put under this liability? That was not that was not cleared in that old law.
But it is specified in this?
No, because in this law they have just omitted the supplier portion. So it's all on the operator. And if the damage goes beyond the ceiling fixed by the operator, the government said the government is setting up a nuclear liability fund, so it can be compensated from that fund. And even if that fund's limit cross, so government can always go to the international
Kalam, but there's one issue which also was raised about a regulatory body or regulatory mechanism, wherein they say that the regulator is being created not by an executive order, but not by a statutory order, which has to be part of this particular bill. Does it affect in any way this entire process?
No, this is actually the opposite. See, the existing regulator ARB was formed by an executive order.
Okay, sorry.
It was formed by an executive order. So there is no law backing ARB.
Okay.
So in this law, ARB is a part of that law.
Okay.
So there is a statutory backing. So what the opposition parties are saying, there should be a separate law only on ARB.
So it should not be part of this
ARB
bill.
should not be a part of this bill, which is aimed to promote nuclear energy.
Okay.
So there is a separate law on ARB. Government on its part said, look, the existing ARB doesn't even have a law.
Okay.
So we have at least put ARB in the law.
And what is the mandate of the ARB?
ARB is mandated to do the regulatory system for all nuclear projects minus the strategic ones.
Okay.
The strategic projects are not under ARB's review.
So, Shamin, one last question. Speaking to the various parties, political parties, especially the opposition, what is the sense you got that, probably there should have been a larger consultation of this particular bill?
They wanted larger consultation on this bill.
On any particular issue?
The entire bill, and especially on the liability part. The opposition said they were not satisfied with the minister's response to the whole debate. Manish Tiwari even raised the issue of this liability issue, the suppliers issue. For the opposition, they said the answer was not, the response was not proper. So they walked out. So I believe that they will the same things will repeat in Rajya Sabha also, and which will be passed with the numbers stacked in favor of the government. Basic problem the opposition is raising about is the consultation. That happened with the case of the Ramji bill, which replaces Manrega also. These are big, it brings qualitative change into the existing laws. So they wanted more consultation. That consultation didn't happen. But see, yesterday for almost 5 hours, the Lok Sabha debated this issue. Rajya Sabha also will be debating it for almost 5 hours. But whether it was enough for such a bill is a question that is left to the wisdom of.
Okay. Thank you, Shamin. Thank you, Kalyan, for speaking to us. That's all we have in today's edition of Deccan Herald Newsroom. Thanks for watching.